Sometimes the hardest decisions we make are the ones that break our hearts to save someone we love. This is the story of Margaret and her golden retriever Max, a bond so strong that not even 5 years of separation could break it. But what happened when they met again will restore your faith in the power of unconditional love. Margaret Collins was 67 when her world started falling apart. For 8 beautiful years, she and her golden retriever Max had been inseparable companions. Max wasn't just a pet. He was her shadow, her comfort, her reason to get up every morning after her husband Harold passed away. Every morning, Max would bring Margaret her slippers. Every evening, he'd rest his golden head on her lap while she watched the news. When she cried missing Harold, Max seemed to understand, pressing closer and offering the kind of comfort only a dog can give. Their daily routine was sacred. A walk to the park at sunrise, where Max would chase butterflies while Margaret sat on their favorite bench, remembering better times. Lunch together in the garden, where Max would patiently wait for his share of her sandwich. And bedtime, where Max would curl up beside her bed, standing guard over the woman who had rescued him from shelter 8 years earlier. But life, as Margaret had learned, doesn't always let us keep the things we love most. It started with small things. Margaret began forgetting to turn off the stove. She'd lose her keys 3 times in one day. Names of lifelong friends would slip away mid-conversation. The diagnosis came like a thunderbolt: early-stage dementia. The progression varies, Dr. Peterson explained gently. But you'll need to make arrangements for your care, and for Max. Margaret's daughter Sarah lived across the country with her own family. "Mom, I wish I could take Max, but Jenny's allergic and our apartment doesn't allow pets. Maybe we could find him a good home." But Margaret knew better. Max was 12 years old now, considered senior for a golden retriever. Who would want an aging dog when there were so many puppies waiting for homes? The decision tore her apart. Every night for 2 weeks, she held Max close, whispering apologies into his soft fur. "I'm so sorry, my sweet boy. This isn't what I wanted, but I can't take care of you the way you deserve anymore." The morning Margaret drove to Sunshine Valley Animal Shelter, Max sat in the passenger seat like he had thousands of times before, tail wagging, trusting completely. He had no idea this ride would be different. At the shelter, Margaret's hands shook as she filled out the paperwork. "Please," she begged the staff through tears, "promise me you'll find him someone who will love him. He's the gentlest soul. He's been my everything." When it came time to say goodbye, Max looked confused. Why was his mama crying? Why was she walking away? He strained against the leash, whimpering, try to follow her. Margaret forced herself not to look back, but she could hear him calling for her long after she'd reached her car. That sound would haunt her dreams for years to come. The shelter staff later said Max sat by the front door for 3 days straight, waiting for Margaret to come back for him. Margaret moved into Sunset Manor, an assisted living facility where her condition could be properly managed. The medication helped slow the progression, and she had good days mixed with difficult ones. But every good day, she remembered Max and wondered if he was happy, if someone was loving him the way he deserved. Meanwhile, at Sunshine Valley, Max had become a different dog. The playful, trusting golden retriever had become withdrawn and sad. Potential adopters would visit, but Max showed little interest in anyone. He was polite but distant, as if his heart was locked away. "He's a wonderful dog," the volunteers would tell visitors, "just a little reserved. He needs someone patient." But patience ran out. Months turned to years. Max's muzzle grew white, his steps slower. At 17, he was now truly a senior dog, and his chances of adoption had dwindled to almost nothing. 5 years after that terrible goodbye, something beautiful happened. Margaret's condition had stabilized enough that she was allowed supervised visits to the community. Sarah, visiting for Christmas, wanted to do something special for her mother. "Mom, I know you miss Max terribly. Would you like to visit the animal shelter? Maybe we could volunteer, spend time with some dogs." Margaret's eyes lit up for the first time in months. "I'd love that, sweetheart." At Sunshine Valley, Sarah explained to the staff that her mother had dementia but loved animals. "We just want her to have some joy," Sarah said. The volunteer led them to the senior dog area. "We have some wonderful older dogs who love gentle attention," she said, opening the gate to a quiet section. And there, in the corner kennel, lay a golden retriever with a graying muzzle. Margaret stopped walking. Her hand flew to her heart. "Max," she whispered. At the sound of her voice, that beloved voice he'd never forgotten, Max's head shot up. His eyes widened. For a moment, time stood still. Then Max began to shake. Not from fear, but from pure, overwhelming joy. He stood slowly, his old bones protesting, and began to whine, the same whine he'd made as a puppy when he was too excited to contain himself. "Mama," Margaret sobbed, falling to her knees as the volunteer quickly opened the kennel. Max didn't run. He was too old for that now. But he moved as fast as his aging body would allow, pressing himself against Margaret with such force that she nearly fell over. He was shaking all over, whimpering, covering her face with kisses, as if he couldn't quite believe she was real. "My sweet boy," Margaret cried, burying her face in his fur. "My beautiful, faithful boy. I never stopped loving you. Not for one single day." Max seemed to understand every word. He pressed closer, as if trying to merge with her, as if he could will them never to be separated again. The shelter staff watched with tears streaming down their faces. Even Sarah, who had worried about her mother's attachment to Max, was sobbing. "Can we?" Sarah started, then stopped, looking at her mother and Max, still clinging to each other. "Can we take him home with us for Christmas?" That Christmas visit became permanent. Sarah moved her mother and Max into a pet-friendly assisted living facility near her own home. Max, despite his age, seemed to grow younger each day he spent with Margaret. Her dementia symptoms even improved with his companionship. Max lived 2 more beautiful years, never leaving Margaret's side again. When he finally passed peacefully in his sleep, he was curled up next to the woman who had loved him enough to let him go, and who had been blessed to hold him one more time. Love doesn't forget. Not in 5 years, not in 50. Max waited because that's what love does. It waits, it hopes, it never gives up. Sometimes the greatest love stories aren't about never saying goodbye. They're about finding each other again. If this story touched your heart, please share it with someone who needs to remember that love always finds a way. And remember, senior dogs in shelters are waiting for their own miracle reunion. Sometimes we can be that miracle for them.